for serving because
Who was she? 3.
She was technically
She looked
obese.
like an
2.
overweight
She
person.
was
What was her
overweight.
name? 1.
Fuck, I don't know her name.
No, wait. Yeah, it is you. What was her name? 5.
Appointed under President Obama.
She was appointed under President Obama. 4. 3. I'm losing patience. 2. 1. Who was the Surgeon General? Either of y'all two. Go ahead, Z. 5. 4.
Regina.
Regina what? 3. 2.
Benjamin.
Regina Benjamin. Yeah, that's right. 1, 2, 3. What's the story with Regina Benjamin?
She went to.
That's not fair.
She went to Johns Hopkins. She graduated with like.
Tell me things that matter.
Okay, look. Okay, she's fat.
Is that really the medical term? 4.
She's obese.
She's obese, yeah. 1, 2, 3. Why is it controversial to have a Surgeon General who's obese?
Because that's like that's like you trying to work out, but your trainer is fat, so he doesn't really know.
Okay, but what's the significance? Because there's something that's really obvious here. Go ahead, Nahom, you got it.
All you gotta do.
Because like some people aren't going to be able to. They're not going. It's not going to be as receptive to other people. Like if she was more fit, like people would be more inclined to listen to what she presents.
Yeah, that's actually a reasonably good way, 1, 2, 3, to say it. I would also say to you that obesity is the #1 health issue in the country today, and if you have a Surgeon General that represents the #1 health issue, then it's not going to be taken as receptively. I think you're right about that. Anything else you can tell me? 4, 3, you got it.
Okay. Well, she got the job, and then I don't know if she quit, but she stopped being the Surgeon General after like 2 years. I think.
It was actually 4, but what else can you tell me about this story? Anything else? 3, 2, 1. Y'all want it? Look over that article because it runs through some of the controversies of having her as the Surgeon General, and it makes mention of how she was eminently qualified, but physically she didn't quite fit the role. And if you remember the group that kind of criticized her, they were called kind of jokingly the Girthers. Because, not birthers, but girthers, they were making fun. You gave me the last correct answer. Pick the category.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Okay.
He said a lot of the stuff that they did.
But I was asking you what her name was. We got to tell it in order. I'm trying to make sure that you're good to write short answers.
There's something else. She was the very first lady
Don't get mad. Calm down.
to take that lecture.
To take what?
No, first African American.
To take dimension?
They said that. No, they didn't.
Pick me a category, Z. If y'all waste my time, I'm going to start taking away points.
He took a whole 5.
What is it?
We do civil rights for 5 points.
Civil rights for 5. List all you can. You'll have it second, but you've got it first. Click it.
List all you can. What?
Voting rights tests.
Voting rights.
You've got it first, you've got it second, you've got it third.
You got it
5.
first.
What's you got it first? 4.
Literacy test.
What's the literacy test? Shh. Loud.
It was like back in the day, African Americans had to take a literacy test in order to vote.
Okay, so what would you have to do?
You would have to, I remember there was a clip, we watched the movie, she had to name all the delegates in her county, and when she named that, they asked her another question. It was like, how many courts are in the county?
Okay, 5. In that clip from Selma, the lady goes, the Oprah Winfrey character goes to vote, and they ask her how many judges are in the state of Alabama, and then they ask her to name them all by name, and she fails. You said something, and let me make sure this is clear. It wouldn't necessarily just be African Americans that would have to take this. They would do it with poor whites too, and ultimately they would remove people if they couldn't answer political questions, if they couldn't read passages. Give me another test. 4.
There was a fee you had to pay.
What's the fee test called? 3, 2, 1. Y'all have it. What? Give me a test. Anybody in the group? You can use notes, please. Yeah.
Literacy test.
Was that already said?
Yes.
-5.
It was not already said. Who said it?
It was only them that didn't say it.
Z said it. Y'all have it next. No, wait, no, you're already done. Who?
You said us after them.
Oh, okay, that's right. My bad. Go.
The grandfather clause.
So what?
The grandfather
What's the
clause?
grandfather clause?
If your grandfather was able to vote, then that means that you can.
If your grandfather could vote, did you say could or couldn't?
Could.
You have -2.
Oh.
Okay, so explain it to me.
Okay, if your grandfather could vote
Yes.
at the time where they were making these, tests and everything like that during probably Jim Crow, that means that you could legally vote.
If your grandfather could vote when slavery was still legal,
Yeah.
then you could actually vote, and I'll go with that.
We're at the bottom. We're at the bottom.
Oh, 1, 2,
Don't play with
3,
me.
4, 5. You gotta watch me. I'm getting
I
old.
know.
Okay, tell me more. Anything else you can tell me?
Poll
About the
taxes?
grandfather clause.
Oh, what's the poll tax? 5, 4.
You had to
It
pay
was
a
a
fee.
tax.
You had to pay a
Leave that
fee. There was
fix someone every.
No, they never answered it.
there was a
Yeah, they just said you had to pay a
You're
fee.
not
They
paying
didn't call it
attention.
poll tax. What's that?
yeah, there was wasn't it
It's a
wasn't
tax
it-
leave as a fixed sum on every liable individual.
A what?
Didn't you have to keep your registration card and bring it with you when you voted?
What is a poll tax?
a fee you had to pay in order to
Okay, so you'd have to pay a fee. Do you remember how much it was?
And if you $2 or something.
No.
Actually, that's not bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It probably ranged between $1 and $5 back in those days, and you had to pay in order to be able to vote.
And if you
Now, there
didn't
was
pay
some-
every year, then you weren't allowed to vote that year. Like if you didn't continue to pay.
If you skipped a year
Yeah.
and then you came back
Oh,
and
if
you
you
wanted
skipped
to
a
vote
year
the
of
next
voting,
year.
then you weren't allowed. Then you have to pay all that money. The actual
What was
money
that
you
called?
did.
Because you're right. What was it called? And you had to pay all of the poll taxes that you had missed in order to be able to vote in that election. What's that called? 5. Straight from the video. 4, 3, 2,
Economic relief.
1. Who's got it last? Look at the video, because the video deals with these. There was the jelly bean test, which is embarrassingly easy. The soap bubble test, which was embarrassingly easy. Nobody seemed to get that one. There was the grandfather clause, which you got. The poll tax. You started to say that they had to keep the receipts. You had to pay it way in advance. Make sure that you get these things. Look at the video, because it mentions some amendments. It even gives some sample questions from a literacy test. I think y'all gave me the last correct answer. Touch the house, pick me a category. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 38, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 34, 1, and -2. Pick me a category.
Civil rights for 2 points. No, presidency. Sorry, the presidency.
Presidency 2 points.
Sorry.
Executive order, executive privilege, and executive agreement. First hand I see. Looks like it's you.
Okay, so executive order gives the president the power to enact like his own bill.
Gives the president the power to enact his own bill.
It's
So
like-
what kind of policy? Where would this focus on?
So he can like issue the troops, but he can't formally like declare war. So that's like an example.
Can you give me an example that we talked about in class of an executive order? 5, 4.
Like Trump with the travel ban, that was an executive order.
Trump with the travel ban was actually an executive order. You're back to even now. An executive order is where the president has the power to make law, and you didn't quite tell me this. President has the power to make law without the approval of Congress, as long as it falls within Article 2 powers. What is executive privilege or executive agreement?
Like the president, an example would be he can pardon people.
President can pardon people.
And he can appoint-
-2. Who's next?
Sir.
Go.
So executive privilege is like an example of this is like when Nixon and Watergate.
What is executive privilege?
Okay, so
5.
when a president can withhold information from the public.
President can withhold what information
So
exactly?
an example of Nixon, he didn't give the police the tapes that were in the room.
Didn't give the tapes. Nixon is actually a pretty good example of that. 1, 2, you're really getting close to first place now. Can you tell me exactly? So it's the president's ability to withhold information dealing with what exactly? 5,
A
4.
case he's involved in.
What's that?
A case he's involved.
3, 2, go.
National security or anything that could like harm the people or like
the country in general.
the country.
Okay, so the president can withhold information if it's dealing with national security.
Correct, because of
Yeah, that's actually true. We'll get back to Nixon here in just a little bit. 1, 2, your lead is growing again. But executive privilege is the idea that you can keep executive branch communications confidential. So, letters, memos, in this case, tapes, emails, faxes. You could go on and on with this kind of a thing. And the president could say, I'm claiming executive privilege for national security. And that is typically going to be accepted. What is an executive agreement? And y'all still have control. 5,
It's normally
4.
normally made when you're
3.
making a
It's
treaty with with a foreign country.
Yeah.
Like the
an
NAFTA,
agreement.
the NAFTA agreement. That's an example of.
NAFTA's an example of an executive.
No,
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 -2.
we didn't agree to that.
-2.
That's not fair. We should be able to agree as a
You
group
gotta
on
shut her
these.
down before she starts doing that. Anybody want executive agreement over here? Executive agreement is the president's ability to negotiate lower level treaties with foreign countries that do not require Senate approval.
She was right.
I was right.
NAFTA is an example.
But it's not one we talked about. And understand on this.
What is an example?
The examples that we were talking about were the drones and the migratory bird treaty. The drone used to patrol the borders with Mexico and the migratory bird treaty. So make sure that you're comfortable with those. Y'all gave me the last correct answer. Click it.
Hey, what's the score now?
Presidential executive order, presidential lawmaking power, confidentiality of executive branch communications, executive agreement, presidential treaty making power. Click it, or touch the house, I'm sorry. Pick me a category, y'all have it.
Oh, why are you raising
We
your hand?
want, so we can get first.
Oh, okay.
So we want, let's do.
No, put your hands down, y'all.
No, can we do
What's that?
Articles for
1.1.
Articles for 1.
That was sweet.
List all you can, you have it first. Click it. Residency restrictions.
Okay, so there's a residency restriction on people that have been convicted of sexual offenses.
Go ahead.
Just because of the fact that they can't, live a certain distance away from, like, 1,000 feet of a school.
School.
Or a park.
Park.
Basically, any place
Daycare,
where
anywhere with children.
Children gather.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is exactly what this is dealing with. Residency restrictions are going to be dealing with the sex offender laws, and the sex offender laws ultimately, if you are a convicted sex offender, they're setting it up so that you cannot live close to places like schools, child care facilities, and places where kids gather. Touch the house, pick me a category. Yes.
You see this
I feel like articles will be struggle with.
Well, guess y'all are going to have to work a little harder. Go
All
ahead.
right, let's do the presidency for
Hands down, hands down. Presidency for what?
3.
3. List all you can. You have it first, you got it second. Click it. United States versus Nixon. 5,
Watergate.
4,
Watergate
3,
scandal.
3. Explain it to me.
Okay.
2.
Nixon had information about Watergate, and they were asking about it. I forgot who was asking about it. Y'all know about this? I don't know.
It was Congress, wasn't
No.
it? And the Watergate scandal had to do with information held about the Vietnam War.
No.
Sir,
I can-
I think it's just -3.
What?
Okay, go Z. Tell me something. Go, tell me something.
Okay, whatever.
Go ahead.
So, what you call it? The Democratic Party, I think it's called CREEP. Their actual acronym, CREEP, whatever.
Yeah, okay, it was CREEP. What did CREEP stand for? Do you remember?
Nah, I don't. But they broke into some Democratic building and they stole something. And then Nixon had tapes on, like, in his whatever room. I think the conference room.
Okay, you got the beginning of this. Let me start to fill it in a little bit. 1, 2, 3.
I know what Greek is.
I'll come back to it. Understand on this. Okay, Nixon formed the committee to re-elect the president, which was what CREEP was. And they did some things that were a little bit unsavory. And when they did these unsavory things, one of which was to break into the Watergate headquarters of the Democratic Party. Okay, so when they broke in there, they did steal some things, but it wasn't anything that determined the election. Did Nixon win? Excuse me.
Yeah, he did.
He did. Did he win close?
No.
He actually didn't. It was one of the biggest wins,
Oh,
1,
yeah.
2, 3, in
was a
American
blowout.
history.
It was a
It was a blowout, yeah.
It was
So
like 63 or
after,
something.
it was
It
what?
was like 60, I don't know, but he had almost double the other of that guy's votes.
Okay, percentage-wise. Don't say things you don't know, though, because I'm going to take away next time. Okay, understand on this. So they began to investigate, and what did Nixon do? 5.
He withheld information from the.
Before that, 4, 3, 2, 1. What did he do? -3. Anybody, what did he do? That's not what he did first. What did he do in United States versus Nixon before we even get to executive privilege? They were investigating him, and what did Nixon do?
Investigating Nixon?
Yeah.